All righty, here we go. Brand new Flyers Daily for the 28th of October, 2025. Flyers Daily presented by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. Flyers, this home-heavy schedule continues tonight when the Flyers take on Sidney Crosby. How about the start of the season by Evgeny Malkin? He's got 14 points in his first 9 games. He's turning back the clock, folks, as the Penguins come to town, and they're sitting in the second spot of the Metropolitan Division of the Eastern Conference with a record through 9 games of 6-2-1, 13 points, plus 8 in goal differential. They did lose their last one, but off to a great start. And it just goes to show you that it's really hard to put a finger on who's who and what's what here early in the season. You look at the Rangers, for example. I mean, it took them forever just to score a goal at home. And they're sitting in the bottom spot in the division. Columbus, but basically 1 point back of the Flyers, and that's by an overtime loss. That's the difference, the Carolina game for the Flyers. Islanders in there as well with 9 points, tied with the Flyers, and it's the Caps, Canes, both with 12 points, Pittsburgh with 13, and then the New Jersey Devils, who are off to a fantastic start, have winning 8 straight games, losing their opener at 8-1, sitting at the top of the division. So trying to decipher who's who and what's what, and teams to can turn back the clock like the Penguins have, and Malkin with the 14 points in his first 9 games. And you wonder what is sustainable, what's not sustainable. The Utah Mammoth are off to an 8-2 start. The Montreal Canadiens are off to a 7-3 start, sitting at the top of the Atlantic Division with the Detroit Red Wings. Vegas, predictable, 5-1-3. They're up there with Seattle. That's a team the Flyers played and beat. In second place right now in the Pacific Division of the Western Conference. Flyers had some quality wins already on their schedule. You know, this tough schedule that they started out with, even the spots that you thought maybe were soft spots like Seattle haven't turned out to be the case so far. They got a 5-2 win over Seattle. They're off to a fantastic start. Joey Decord's been great, and Flyers chased them in that game. So some quality wins for the Flyers as they try to establish that identity. And like we talked about in yesterday's episode with Bill, I thought the game on Saturday, the matinee game against the Islanders at Xfinity Mobile Arena, was a really big building block for the Flyers to come back from a 2-goal deficit to get it tied, go back trailing 3-2 in the game, get it tied, get it to overtime, and then shoot out and win it, was a big, big element. But it's the Penguins tonight. We're seeing the Penguins nice and early. And like I said, Malkin leading the way with 14 points. He's got 2 goals, 12 assists, 14 points, playing just a little over 17 minutes. He's only got 1 power play goal, but 4 power play assists. It hasn't been about the goals for Malkin. It's been about the assists and the 12. And Crosby off to a good goal-scoring start, leading the Penguins with 6 goals, 11 points in 9 games. He's off to a great start. You got to wonder how sustainable those goal numbers are, because he is shooting the puck at 40%, which is an enormous number. 3 of his goals coming on the power play, and it is the league's top power play as we enter this game tonight. 33.3% is what they're clicking at right now. It's a big number. We're starting to get a larger sample size. When we get to around 15, we'll start to see the averages probably fall in. The top team probably fall into that 27 to 28% range. But we're still early, and Penguins having a ton of success on the power play. Flyers got to stay out of the box in this game against them tonight. Flyers being good on the PK for the most part, 9th in the NHL, killing at 87.1%. That average at about the 20-game mark for most teams probably come down to the top teams being around 83, 84%. But right now, 87% for the Flyers. PK has been good to start the season. And again, what's a pretty small sample size? We're under 10 games still. But that's one of the matchups tonight within the matchup. But we always know that when, you know, the Flyers and you take on the Penguins and you take on Crosby and it's in the home building, there's always a lot of, you know, sparks that could potentially fly, especially with the Penguins off to a good start. And Crosby's just been, I mean, just so unbelievably good against, look, he's been a great player, period, end of sentence. But to take it a step further, you look at his career and against the Flyers and just how good he's been against the Philadelphia Flyers in now 90 games against the Flyers. That's an insane number. 56 goals, 78 assists, 134 points. He's got more points in one more game against the Islanders at 139, but he's had tremendous success against the Flyers. So anytime, and I still think he's the top 5 player in the world. I don't think there's been enough drop-off there where I can pull him out of that equation, which is incredible at his age to still be doing it the way he's doing it. I mean, he has been around for a long, long time at this point. He's played 1,361 games, and he's dealt with injuries. 38 years of age, just turned that in August. So still got to be keenly aware of where 87 is at all points in this game tonight. And look, these are big games at this time of year in the division for the Flyers and for the Penguins. If these teams want to hang around and not be chasing the standings, and the notion was that, the Penguins, and I know Elliot Friedman's talked about this, that they were the only team kind of outwardly rebuilding or okay with losing to try and get the best odds at Gavin McKenna, who's at Penn State. Players see that and they say, that's not my problem. Players want to win. So while they're probably having those discussions in Pittsburgh, I'm not sure about, the Penguins, should they be winning? Should they not be winning? With the conversation we had many times here on Flyers Daily about the Flyers through this rebuilding process. When you're off to a 6-2-1 start, does that pivot you as a Penguins fan? I'm not a Penguins fan. I don't know. I don't have, the cups that they banked, the back-to-back, and then the one in 2009 and the finals appearance in 2008. I don't know what the last couple of years have been like for them as fans, how they reflect on it. I know they've had some great players from Lemieux to Yager to Crosby, and they've been real good with generational talent. But they're off to a good start through 9 games. There's no doubt about that. And sometimes it's not – you can look back at the end of the season and go, wow, you should have never lost that game on, October 28th to the Pittsburgh Penguins because of where they ended up in the bottom of the division. Well, at the time – and look, I don't know if this is going to be the case or not, but at the time right now, they're the second best team in the division. And they do have a record of 6-2-1. So it's not the team that you play where they end up at the end of the season that you can measure it by. You got to measure it by the team that they are when you play them. And right now, Penguins are playing pretty darn good. And we'll have reminders of that throughout the entire season. Flyers off to the start through 8 games of 4-3-1, +2 in goal differential. Like I said, have given up 15 less goals in their first 8 games this year than they did a year ago. 15 is a huge number. It's almost 2 goals a game. And that's not just the addition of Dan Vladar. That's just not Sam Ersson playing well. That's that unfairly so. A lot of times goaltenders get blamed for big goals against numbers. Sometimes it's fair. There were points last year where watching Kolosov or Fedotov or Ersson or whoever, the goaltending wasn't good enough. But the goaltending and team defense, it all goes hand in hand. And the team defense and the goaltending combined, both being better, has you at a point where you give up 15 less goals in your first 8 games than you did in your first 8 games a year ago. They were 2-5-1 through 8 last year. This year, they're 4-3-1. The records, I guess you could say, a bit better. 2-5-1 was what? 5 points. This year, they have 9 points through 8 games. So it is better, and it is a sign of progress. Where it goes from here remains to be seen. But in thinking about that Islander game and how well they were playing and what the Flyers were up against in that game and how they handled themselves, I thought it was real important. I think it's a real important game and could be a catalyst going forward into tonight, into the rest of this week against Nashville, then this weekend's games with Toronto, and then Calgary coming in on Saturday and Sunday. So this is a really pivotal week to close out October, begin November, and have a really good – begin November on Sunday, but have a really good week with these 4 home games. Not only do you put yourself in a good positional place in the standings and in the Metro, but you put yourself in a good place in the conference standings and your at-home record, where right now the Flyers at home are 4-1. They're 0-2-1 on the road. Yeah, they've played some tough teams, but they're 4-1 at home. If they can be a good road team and take care of that business, where that home ice advantage has become a little bit less of a thing. For example, the Rangers, though, are 0-4-1 at home. The Penguins are 4-1 on the road, 2-1 at home. It's the Devils have been great at home, 5-0. But if the Flyers can, with these 4 games this week, coming off that game against the Islanders, where they got a third line going and capable of scoring with the Mishkov, Zegras, and Dvorak line, if they can become a team that can get scoring from 3 lines, from the Couturier, Tippett, Konechny line, and Konechny's got to get more production going, no doubt about it. And then you have obviously that second line of Cates, Forster, and Brink, which you feel, at least I do, always comfortable that they're going to generate offense and production will be there for the most part. And then if you can get that third line going with Mishkov, Zegras, and Dvorak, then you become a little bit of a dangerous team and a little bit of a matchup problem because you throw out that speed of Tippett and Konechny with the 200-foot responsibility and abilities of Sean Couturier, who's off to a great start. You can throw that line out. The Cates line can be a line that goes against the opposition's top line and also can possibly get offense out of it at the other end. And then you have the raw talent, high-end talent of Zegras and Mishkov with a responsible player in Dvorak. Then you could become a little bit of a problem. And then with the D-zone structure, this box and one, the way you're defending and the goaltending you're getting, and you start to feel a lot different. That 4-3-1 record through 8 this year and 15 less goals feels a lot different than just the marginal step forward because of all those things I just outlined. And those are important. But there's a caveat. There's always a but. It's not a huge but there's a but. They've got to take care of business in these 4 games at home. I'm not saying they need to go 4-0-0. But of the 8 available points, you need to come out with a minimum 6, hopefully 7 of the 8. If you can do that, you really set yourself up going into November. And then you're off to what I would unequivocally call a good start and a really good start at home. And you're gonna pay on the back end and be on the road a little bit more when you have 9 to 10 stretch at home in the beginning of the season. You're going to pay the price. Credit card bill is going to come due, and you're going to have to go on the road. And you're going to have to be a good team that goes on the road, no doubt. Every team, 41 at home, 41 on the road. That's the way it plays out. But if they can continue that structure from the crease out, the goaltending and timely saves is the most important thing. Vladar has done it on many occasions this season. Not just made the save, it wasn't about volume of saves, but made the timely save at a great time where the Flyers go down the other end and score, or you prevent the team that's got momentum from tying a game or going ahead at a key pivotal time. I go back to the Florida win the Flyers had, where the Flyers really controlled the first 7 minutes, and Florida had an odd man break, and Vladar made a huge save on that odd man break on the right side, moving left to right, and then the Flyers went down and scored a minute later. They got something out of it. Whereas if you control the game in the beginning, you get nothing out of it, and they get down on their first opportunity, you're down 1-0. It's like, oh my God, here we go again. This team's on top of us. They already beat us this year. It's that timely save. For Ersson in the Islander game, it was the third period blocker save on the 2-on-1 on Drouin. It was obviously the overtime glove save, which was ridiculous, and then the great performance in the shootout. So all of those things go into the equation. This is one of those weeks right now, based on the way things have started, the opposition coming in, that we don't just circle on we've been breaking the season up into week-by-week chunks. We don't just circle this one on the schedule. We circle this one in red. This one's really pivotal. This is a very, very pivotal week for the Philadelphia Flyers. And it starts tonight. Couldn't start off in a better way. All 32 teams playing tonight, 6 o'clock game at Xfinity Mobile Arena, and the Flyers and the Pens. Pens trying to wind the clock back with a 6-2-1 start. What more could you ask for? Now, I won't be at the game tonight, which sucks. I have to do the game from home. I'm hoping to make it home by pregame. I do have a procedure today that I have to get as part of my ongoing treatment and recovery and everything. And I have to go under, so I can't drive down to the building. But I am looking forward to not only the game tonight, but I am looking forward to this week and see if we can get some really good intel on where this team is as we flip that calendar, tear the month of October off, and flip it to November coming up this weekend when the Flyers take on Calgary on Sunday. This is a big, big week. Let's get to a couple of emails from Flyer fans and consumers of Flyers Daily. This one comes from Michael. He says, hello again, Jason. I'm sitting on my lunch break watching highlights from the Islander game on Saturday. And he says, Mishkov's shootout winner was reminiscent of Zegras' game-tying goal. coming from the right, left-handed shot, low blocker, opposite side. I'm a novice hockey guy, but learning as I go. Is this a result of in-game scouting or more instinctual shooters going to shoot mentality? All the best, Mike. Now, Mike, I don't know. One, because I haven't had enough conversations with Zegras just yet, with him being here just in the beginning of his first year, to know if he is a fan of pre-scout. I think the one that he scores where he goes blocker, he kind of goes inside blocker. He doesn't really go outside the blocker. He just collects that puck after the pass from Dvorak to get the game tied at 3. And that's the net that Sorokin showed. That's where he went. So I don't think that was the result of any pre-scout, but I don't know how much a guy like Trevor Zegras relies on pre-scout. Some players are different. They rely on it a ton, on goalie tendencies or defensive tendencies and shootouts tendencies and all that, just like goalies are. And some don't like to know. They like to just react because they think that, well, if I have it in my head that this goalie gets beat low block, let's say something different instead of low blocker for a change. High glove, when the puck's on the right side of the ice below the top of at a certain spot, and I'm going to be looking for that. Well, what if it's not there? And I have it in my head that that's the spot to go. Now you're kind of twisted a little bit. You're not taking what he's giving you. You're not taking what the game is giving you. You're going based on the numbers of what's happened in the past, even though in this situation, that's not what he's showing. So I don't know about for Zegras or Mishkov for that matter, how much they rely on pre-scout for in-game stuff or shootout. Now, in the shootout, Mishkov's goal was a little bit different because he comes in and it all happens at such a different pace. And, in the game, the way the play happens where Zegras scores, it's Dvorak drives the middle of the ice. The puck kind of loses it. He regathers it. It happens very quickly. In a shootout, it's mano a mano. It's the shooter coming in at a slower pace and having that opportunity to be able to beat the goaltender. And to me, that just looked like Mishkov in that situation, probably knowing some tendencies of his fellow countryman, Ilya Sorokin, and knowing that if he can get his weight shifted to his left foot, he can go along the ice low blocker. And Mishkov's trying to do what he can from a body language standpoint, showing him the stick and the eyes and everything else, that he was going to shoot to the glove side to get him to lean there. As soon as he leaned there, he went back the other way. That's my take on it. But the language barrier for me with Mishkov to be able to ask those questions, I'm not sure how much either rely on pre-scout. I will do some digging and investigation, though. However, David had sent me an email and said, "Hey, Jason, first off, congrats on the great results from the latest exams. In addition to the important things in life, I hope you get to make it to every damn game you want to." Well, I want to go to the one tonight, but I have to have this. It's called a FlexSig procedure done, and to kind of what it does is it kind of through pathology will confirm what radiologically all of my results have shown. So it's just another step in the process for me. That being said, I'm not looking forward to it. I have to do prep tonight as I'm recording this, and I'm not looking forward. I get anxious about all of these things. I'm just done being poked and prodded, but I'll make it through. It will be fine. David says, maybe this makes me a dinosaur, but I love the toughness in the past few games the Flyers are showing, especially the fights between non-enforcers. Those are the kind of fights that can turn a game, especially when sticking up for a teammate. We saw Konechny go the other night. We've seen Gurbankin get the gloves off a little bit. We've seen some guys going that you wouldn't expect to go. He said, I'm not a fan of stage fights, but I'll take at the moment organic passion and anger anytime. We saw, obviously, Garnet Hathaway go. He said, to me, that's an indication that the compete level, give a bleep level, is there, and the guys are dialed in. Probably also a sign of a strong locker room. Totally agree. He said, just musing David. David, I think you're right. When you see guys, like I think the fight that Delarier had with, was it Mayfield? No, wasn't the Islander game. Maybe it was the Islander game. Whoever he went with in that game, Minnesota game. It was Foligno. That happens on the first. I think that's one of those ones that those two know they're going to go on the first shift, and that's the end of it. They're both there to do a job. But the other ones, the Gurbankin, the Konechny, and they have all been organic. And we've heard about how tight the Flyers locker room was last year and the year before. Well, that dynamic has to be rebuilt every year, and it's being rebuilt, and it's happening organically. Hearing some things that quotes from players, you get little indications, and there was one that I thought that was really important that I went and tracked down the source of the quote where it was said at to Ashlyn Sullivan at NBC Sports Philly, and Trevor Ziegler said, "I feel like I've been here my whole career." And this was just like last week, I think a week and a half ago now that he said that. And when I dissect that quote, and then I went back and watched it and saw how it was delivered and how he said it, it tells me that there's a really strong bond in there already. Guys playing for each other. And while some people will discount that because you can't measure it on a stat sheet, I will tell anybody that if you don't believe in that, then I'm not asking you to even go back and watch the Stanley Cup final. I'm asking you to go back and watch when the clock hit 0 of last year's Stanley Cup final and listen to every Florida Panther player talk about that element of playing for the guys in that room and just how tight and important that is to success. Just go back and watch that post game if you can somehow. Find it on YouTube, whatever. That's how important it is. And when I heard Ziegler say that, I feel like I've been here my whole career. I thought that was a big thing. Because he, my perception of him before he got here was a bit of a me guy and all these skills. I don't have a clear perception because my perception may not be reality of what he was like in Anaheim. Just like my perception of Bryce Harper when he was a member of the Washington Nationals wasn't the reality of what he was going to be like as a Philadelphia Philly. So I think that is important. And if you want vindication of that importance, just watch that post game from the Stanley Cup final. All right, Flyers, Pens tonight. All 32 teams in action, 16 games, 6 o'clock start. We'll break it down tomorrow in the episode. And again, this is circled in bright red on the schedule this week, these 4 games. Flyers, Penguins tonight, Nashville Thursday, Saturday, Montreal, or Toronto rather, and Sunday, Calgary. These 4 games to wrap up this 9 out of 10 at Xfinity Mobile Arena are massively important for positioning in the standings and how this season ultimately goes. This is one of those very, very important weeks of Flyers hockey. So join us tomorrow when we break it down, Flyers, Penguins, and more on a brand new episode of Flyers Daily.